Hey, let's get this party started. Hey there, welcome back to another video. You might notice my background is a bit different. I am super excited. I'm working on a new YouTube video layout. So it isn't ready yet. I wanted to go ahead and get this week's video finished, but just wanted to tell you new things are coming, so stay tuned. So in this video, I want to chat with you about 4 easy budgeting tips to boost business health. Super excited to go into this with you. So I want to walk you through an example with one of my clients, and I don't believe that this client is really a lot different than you might find yourself as a small business owner. And I'll be telling you a little bit about his story and how I helped him to build a spending plan and a budget for his business. But to kick us off, I just want to let you know that the goal of this video is to help empower you to create a simple and effective budgeting framework that's geared to your business needs. So tip number 1 is to get a notebook, literally a notebook, a yellow pad, something that has paper that you can write on. Do not put this in an app. Please do not put this in your phone, because there's so many other things in your phone that will distract you, right? How many times do we go into our phone and we're going to do this thing and we end up getting on Instagram or whatever? That's not what I want you to do. I want you to get a paper, physical paper, and I want you to write this down. I want you to go into every bank account that you have right now, and I want you to write down the balance, today's balance in that bank account. So if you have 2 checking accounts and 2 savings accounts with your business, I want you to write down all of those balances. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go into look at your credit cards. You're going to look at your loans and your lines of credit. So any amounts that you owe from any source, I want you to write those down as well. So that's just going to be on one page. So tip number 1 is just know where you stand right now. Super important. We're establishing a baseline today with where we are. Tip number 2 is write down the expenses that you have paid last week. So what you want to do is, again, depending on what you have set up, if you have accounting software already set up, this will be pretty simple. But again, you're going to write this on paper. You're going to write down every expense that went out of the business from a checking account, on a credit card, anything that represents money that went out of your business. I want you to take note of that on your paper. Now, let me mention, if you want to have a quick start on how to do this, I have this nifty little printable you can get your hands on down below called the Cash Notebook. And it is built for exactly this. It's called Cash at a Glance. You're able to write down the name of every account and the account balance, like I just mentioned. And then on the back, it's a bill and expense review where you can write out all of the expenses that you had from last week. Now, here's the thing. Once you've written this down, you're also going to write down what are the expenses that you have going out this upcoming week. So with this exercise, it's going to help you, number 1, see the things that you've already paid for. And then the next thing is seeing the things that are going to go out. And so what you can do if you don't have a good handle on this about what you're about to pay is you can either go into your accounting software and look at what you spent last month at about this time of the month, or what you can do is log in and look at your credit cards. If you do a lot of credit card charging for business expenses, you can look there as well. But you want to just find the total. You want to find the total that went out last week, and then you want to find what you're anticipating to be paying out this upcoming week. Now, going back to my client that I mentioned, this was a huge thing for him. 2 big learnings that he took away from this. The first learning he took away was, I had no idea I was paying for this and this and this and this. So we actually we were doing, I consult, I'm a money coach and bookkeeping professional. So I was helping him understand what he was spending and then what he didn't even want to be paying for. So we highlighted a bunch of things that he needed to stop paying for. The other thing that he learned from this exercise is he said, I have no way to really know what I have to pay upcoming. Like, I don't have a signal. There's nothing to say, hey, by the way, you need to have this much money in your bank account this week because we have this going out. So, with the maybe payrolls coming up or a big credit card payment or something like that, he just didn't really have a way to manage that. So we worked on a way to put some things in place to help him there. So that this exercise alone, tip number 2, can really help you to get a better idea of what your expenses have been for just 1 week and then what you're anticipating them to be for this upcoming week. All right, moving on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is you're going to go back a little different than tip 2. You want to look at the total amount that went out of your business in the previous month. And so go back again. This is going to be a little bit easier if you have accounting software that you can run an income statement. Just run that report. Look at your income statement. Look at the total expenses. I just want you to know that one number. If you don't have accounting software or if it isn't updated or correct, then what you can do instead is very similar to what you did in tip 2. You're going to look back at all of the expenses that you had that hit a credit card or any expenses that went out of a bank account or other account, just any money that went out in the previous month. You want to know that number. And then the final tip, tip number 4, is to go back and look at the revenue that came in your business in the previous month. So again, if you have accounting software and it's updated, then you can run an income statement. You're going to look at the very top of your income statement and it will show you the amount of income that you took in that month. And I would say if you are on an accrual basis for your books, if you want to move this and look at the cash basis reporting, that's going to show you the actual amount of cash. And if you're not familiar with those terms, I'll explain a little bit about that. So when you run an income statement, a lot of times businesses will run on an accrual basis, which means that when you enter an invoice, let's say that I'm invoicing one of my clients. Well, if I enter the invoice today, that doesn't mean that they've necessarily paid me today. It just means that I've entered the invoice today into my software. So what the software recognizes is that I am basically booking that revenue the day that I made the invoice, even though it's another day I actually get paid. So cash basis reporting is different. Cash basis says this is the actual amount of cash that you got. This is the income that you actually received in that month. It's not what we entered as we will be paid for that revenue. So make sure that you're running a cash based report for that. And so you just want to know that number. So tip 3 was the total amount of expense for the previous month. Tip number 4 is to capture the total amount of revenue that you took in last month. Now, you're thinking, this doesn't totally get me to a spending plan and all of that. Absolutely, it doesn't. This is a quick exercise. So certainly take a minute or two, pause this video, and do these steps. Whether you want to download the cash notebook, as I mentioned before, and just have this that you're filling out a one time or I would say get into the habit of doing this every week for the next few weeks, or even just get a piece of paper and do this. This one step alone is going to get you to where you're just more aware. You're more aware of the money that's going out of your business, and it's going to start getting you to think a little bit in advance. Like you're going to start planning for big expenses, or, oh, I know my balance is this, so maybe I can't buy that next round of inventory that I would like to purchase. So what I did next with this client is we worked through these 4 tips together. And then after that, I did a brainstorming session with him. And so if you'll click this video, this is actually the brainstorming exercise that I went through with my client. And really it helped. We needed to do this brainstorming, and you need to do this brainstorming if you want to build a budget that is going to work for you. And I find that this is something that a lot of people just miss. Sometimes we're just trying to find the next app or find the solution, and we really don't spend any time to kind of analyze the kind of business owner that we are and the things that we have going on and how much time that we have and all of this. So in this next video that I've referenced, you want to go through that either now or very soon. And I'm going to walk you through a series of questions, the questions I went through with my client, and just asked him. So one example is, what system works best for you? Like, what system are you going to be able to maintain best? Is it going to be a paper-based system? Is it going to be an app? Or is it going to be a spreadsheet? Like, where do you work? How are you built in your brain? So like for me personally, I'm a paper person. So I have systems in my business, but my control center is my paper planner. You might not be the same. So that video is going to walk you through some questions to ask yourself, and then I'm going to have some solutions for you based on your answers. So if you are a paper person, I'm going to say, here's a way that you can start your spending and set up your budget this way. Or if you're like, no, I really just want to have an app. I really need to have everything electronic. No problem. Here on my channel, I want to make sure that every video you listen to has action steps and that you have thought through the decisions that you make and you're like, yes, like I'm going to be putting together this spending plan, or I'm going to be using an app to do this, and that you know that it's a sustainable system for you. And so in future videos, we'll be talking more about that, about setting up systems, setting up financial systems for your business. But check out that video. So in these 4 steps, just to wrap up what those tips were one more time, number 1 is to grab a notebook or a piece of paper or the cash notebook, as I mentioned, write down the balances of all bank and credit card accounts, lines of credit, and loans. Tip number 2 is to write down the expenses, everything that you paid last week, and then also write down the number of bills and expenses and the amounts that are coming up this following week. Tip number 3 is to go back into your accounting software or your bank and credit card accounts and determine the total amount of money that you spent in your business in the previous month. And tip number 4 is to do exactly the same thing, looking at the previous month, but the total amount of income. So thank you so much for being with me in this video today. Click the links below, as I mentioned, to that brainstorming video and to some other resources we have for you. Thanks, and until next time, take care.